Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl Mini Mindset Reset. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, and author, one thing has become abundantly clear. So much of what gets in our way in our daily lives is not only how we think, but what we think, our mindset. Because of that, every other week, I'm taking your requests and questions and handing over quick, easy to use, practical strategies and life tools to help you shift your thinking, create calm, help you understand and express your emotions, harness your inner power, and learn how to navigate your personal story in 15 minutes or less. After all, how else can you get your life together? So let's shift your perspective with the tools and conversations that help you in the throes of change. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast mini mindset reset starts right now. How you view yourself absolutely matters, and that view equals your self-esteem. Self-esteem is essential as it is a building block for your confidence, your sense of worth, and just how far you will willingly give yourself permission to thrive. What's so important to understand is that your self-worth and your self-esteem are developed through evidence, through your experiences. You don't arrive here on earth and you're like, oh, I'm so, confident and I have so much self-esteem. It's built. When we think of the word built, we tend to think of it being of elevation, right? We're creating something positive, but we can create something negative in our self-esteem when we attach to what isn't working for us. We all know that, but we don't really look at it that way. On the flip side of that, we can bring ourselves into a place of genuine connection with the self, and our self-esteem is really great. We have self-confidence. And we get into a place of living our life through the mindset that even if we mess up, I don't have to downgrade my worth. I can give myself the ability to flow in my life, and I don't have to keep my emotions hostage to only the things that work in my favor immediately and without any type of pushback. Because again, if our self-esteem is built through evidence and through our experiences, how we view these things absolutely matters. Today's mindset reset comes from Sarah in Michigan. She wrote in and said, I used to think I had a healthy self-esteem, but recently I've been questioning myself. I find myself not feeling confident I can do what I need to or even what I want to. I am constantly comparing myself to others, especially my friends in my friend group. I'm triggered by small mistakes, and I feel like I'm failing in every area of my life. When I said that to my mother, she said, your self-confidence is shot. Then she told me all the ways and all the things I need to stop doing and not be hard on myself, which did not help at all. It actually made it worse. I guess my question is, how do I know if my self-esteem is my problem? And if it is, how can I turn it around? Sarah, great question. This does feel like a problem. However, I am going to tell you that today we can move through some very simple things to help you get out of this space and into a space of truly feeling empowered and holding yourself in a really strong regard. First and foremost, what is self-esteem? At its most basic, it is how you view yourself. It's that opinion you hold of you. So that is the first question for everyone, for Sarah, for you that's listening. How do you hold yourself? What regard do you have of yourself? What opinion do you have of yourself? And is it true? That's the most important thing. In order to have positive experiences in your life, to feel connected, to feel confident, your self-view has to at least be neutral. If it's negative, it is the frame in which you see everything else. You may have low self-esteem if you feel the way that Sarah described. You don't feel confident about your abilities. You're constantly comparing yourself to other people in a negative way. You feel triggered when you make even the smallest mistakes. You find yourself resistant to any kind of suggestion or criticism. You even focus on your failures and absolutely ignore your accomplishments. You feel anxious and depressed and worried about everything you do. You sort of rewire your brain to view your life in a way that is negative, and you really struggle to find a positive place in your life. When we have low self-esteem, we tend to fall into some extreme styles of thinking, and we distort the information, the evidence, and we come up with an assessment of the self that is, in fact, negative, not good enough. And we have to begin to ask some really rational questions. And we're going to do that with a reframe of thought. But I want to give you these questions before we walk through how to make the change. So those questions sound like, is there any evidence to support my negative thinking? You know, in Sarah's case, she said, I feel like I'm always failing. Is that true? Is it really true that you are failing in every area and everything that you're doing? And the next part of that question is, what does the evidence say? Can you actually find places in your life that you are thriving? Can you see where maybe you are failing a little bit and need to elevate it? What does the evidence say? The next piece is there any evidence that goes against my negative thinking, right? This judgment of the self. That's very important because a lot of times there is, but we overlook it. Understanding your thinking, getting into a space of shifting the negative thoughts is a major part of our self-esteem. And most of the time we do not see it like that, but it's absolutely necessary. So with those questions, let's do a self-esteem self-audit, right? I'm going to walk you through that. Because what we're trying to do is not necessarily change the self-esteem immediately. What we're trying to identify is what's holding you in this thought pattern so that we can then put some things into action, into place to help us get away from the negative thoughts, out of the negative actions, and into a place that we put healthy experiences into our life. Because again, self-esteem, self-worth is built on evidence. So at the end of your day, or you can do it right now, doesn't matter, I want you to take a little time to do a self-audit and build up your self-esteem. And again, it goes back to those questions we just asked, but I want you to really look at one moment where you're feeling like you're failing, or that things aren't working out for you, or that you're in comparison. Bring that thing forward. And I want you to use this little exercise as the way to break down the situation. Remember, we talk so often about getting down to just the facts. This is what we're doing here. So with your situation in mind, I want you to ask yourself, and then write it out if you want, or just use it as a thinking moment. What about this situation actually makes me feel that I'm not worthy? We're using the lack of worth as our example right now. What about this moment makes me feel this certain way? Give yourself that moment, think about it, lock it in. Now ask yourself, is that true? Is how I feel about this moment the actual truth? And with that, I want you to go through the moment again, but I want you to look for any triggers in the moment. Are you connecting to an experience that has absolutely nothing to do with this exact moment, and yet it's making you focus on what possibly could happen? We're forecasting. We feel triggered because of the smallest mistake, or we have a lack of self-worth already leading into the moment because a past experience didn't go in our favor. So I want you to think about that. Are my feelings connected to this moment, or do they belong somewhere else? Once you understand, once you know where you stand and why you are there, I want you to look at the situation yet again and try to pull out some positive. Remember, we're trying to create the relationship to the moment in a different way. Can you offer yourself some praise? Can you find something that you did really well in the moment? And then remind yourself why the moment feels good and how this adds value to you as a person. Think of this as sort of self-detective work, right? You're finding the evidence that disproves all the negative facts, in air quotes, that you're telling to yourself. You know, if you say to yourself, I mess up everything that I touch, look at everything that goes against that negative thought. Changing your thought is necessary in order to change the self-esteem. I've said it more than once, and I have to keep saying it because that is really the root. If you want to continue to build the self-esteem, you have to put thought into action. If your negative thoughts keep creeping in, then that means you have to put a stop button to everything that is coming in and saying, is this true? Does this work for me? Am I accepting thoughts and feelings that don't belong to me in order to just continue to not be pushed out of my box? And then I want you to accept that you're not perfect. No one is. I'm not, you aren't, no one is. One major part that so many people struggle with when it comes to their self-esteem is accepting that there will be errors in life. You have to learn to move past these errors because not everything is going to go perfectly. Mistakes are going to happen. If you live your life with this sense of impending fear and threat, guess what? You will always have anxiety. You'll always be shutting yourself down. You will always feel like you cannot grow. Accepting and having grace for the self is massive. And you have to tune into that inner voice. Saying positive affirmations to yourself helps you boost your confidence, and it tells the brain that the pattern that I've had before doesn't necessarily have to be my pattern now. Boosting your self-esteem is highly important. There are many ways that we can do this. This little audit is really just one way to put a stopgap into the growth process, meaning I don't go back, right? I'm not downgrading myself and moving backwards, but this allows me to get into more neutral space and to put into practice that change of thought, because that has to be there before you actually move into the healthy self-esteem. And speaking of healthy self-esteem, I want you to know that having balance is important. You want to be confident in yourself, but you also want to accept that there's always going to be room for growth. You're never going to get to a place in your life where you wash your hands of the moment and did the healing process. I've grown as much as I need to, and I can move on. If you want to have a sense of worth and confidence in your abilities, you always have to give yourself room for failure and room for growth. So whether you're struggling with self-esteem that is related to, say, work or relationships like Sarah, or body image, or just general self-worth, it's important to know that the more you move towards having a different thought process, the more you will move towards self-confidence. Low self-esteem is built over time, just like positive is. Give yourself time, give yourself space. Know that this is a mental exercise to create physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and even financial change in your life. So I challenge you, move through this little self-audit practice. It's not hard, right? Those questions should take you no more than just a few minutes to move through. You can do a deeper dive, and that should take you 10 to 15. Okay? Be honest, be open, challenge yourself, and know that you have the power to change anything that is moving through your head. You have to be willing to do it, and you have to put it into action. So Sarah, thank you for the question. I hope that you realize that self-esteem may be your problem, but below it is your thinking. So change your thinking. What am I thinking? Is it true? Is this how I want to feel? I challenge all of you. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl mini mindset reset. If you have a subject or a strategy request, email us at getyourlifetogethergirl@gmail.com. Or you can visit our website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. If you're looking for daily inspiration or tips and tools, join the growing community at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thank you for being a valuable member of this community. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.